Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Bow Valley Sustainable Building Summit. My name is Jody Conwell, and I'm a program coordinator at the Biosphere Institute of the Bow Valley, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping notices. As webinar attendees, you will not be able to unmute your microphone without permission or turn on your video. However, we do welcome active participation at these events. So if you have any questions for Meredith and Paul, please do type them into the Q&A box as we go along. There's going to be plenty of time for questions at the end, so we'll hold off answering any questions until then. I just needed to let everybody know that Meredith and Paul don't have video today. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please do reach out to me using the chat function, and I'll do my best to solve your problem. So as always, the Bow Valley Sustainable Building Summit has been brought to you today by the Biosphere Institute of the Bow Valley and the Bow Valley Builders and Developers Association. The Biosphere Institute is a local Canmore-based charity that aims to address what we believe are the two major challenges affecting the Bow Valley today, one of which is human-wildlife coexistence and the other is climate change. We do this through targeted education, research, and community engagement, and our climate action efforts are managed under the Bow Valley Shift program. The Bow Valley Builders and Developers Association, or BODA, is a membership-driven networking and advocacy group, and BODA keeps its members up to date on issues impacting the industry and our community. BODA luncheons have become the premier monthly business networking event in the Bow Valley, and I'm pleased to announce have relaunched recently this September. With funding from Energy Efficiency Alberta and the town of Canmore, the Biosphere Institute spent 6 months in 2019 asking local businesses what they wanted to learn about energy efficiency and how they wanted to learn it. The result is the Bow Valley Sustainable Building Summit. Thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, the decision was made to cancel the original in-person event and take our learning online. I would like to now introduce today's presenters, Paul Denchuk and Meredith Hampstead. Paul and Meredith are passionate about building homes and communities better for people and for the planet. Paul is the hands-on project lead for ThinkBright Homes. He is a civil engineering technologist and a Red Seal journeyman carpenter with over 2 decades experience as a builder. He is currently training to become a certified passive house designer. Meredith operates behind the scenes at ThinkBright Homes, applying 2 decades of environmental consulting experience to deliver rigorous project and financial management and client relations. ThinkBright builds custom homes and does energy efficient and aesthetic renovations. Education and training are a core part of their business model as they help drive the regional and provincial industry to better housing outcomes at a fair price, for which we are thankful that they have taken the time to join us today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our hosts today, Paul and Meredith. Please take it away.
Thank you very much. Just give me a moment here, and we will. I need to share screen first. Do we have the right slide up there?
Yes, you're good to go. Thank you, Meredith.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Today, Paul and I are going to present on the BC Energy Step Code, which we feel is an excellent roadmap for the what, why, and how of cost-effective, energy-efficient residential construction. Paul and I have been building together for about 20 or 25 years in the Columbia Valley. We're a small company. We've got just about 12 employees, and really our mission is to change the world for the better, one house at a time. By way of agenda today, we are going to talk to you about why the step code is relevant in Alberta. what the BC Energy Step Code is, really at a very high level. And then I'll talk about 4 critical management processes for building high performance houses. And Paul will go over 6 critical building strategies for building high performance energy efficient houses. And depending on how much time we have, we'll look at a case study or 2. But before we begin, we want to learn a little bit about you. So I'm going to ask Jody to put up some polling questions here. Actually, I think I can do it here. Oh, it needs to be closed, Jody. There we go. So if you can take, less than a minute to just answer these questions, it should be open. Are you a builder, developer, or energy advisor? And if not, I guess that makes you a superhero. Have you ever worked with an energy advisor? Have you ever participated in a blower door test? And generally, what kind of projects do you work on? We'll just leave that for about 20 seconds here. You should be able to go through these. And Jody, how many do we have answering? Are we ready to close it off?
Okay, so we're about 50%. Come on, guys, you can do better.
Click, click, click.
Okay,
All
I
right.
think we're good here. So
Yep.
I'm going to share the
So
results.
the results. Good. So we have developers, energy advisors, and superheroes. I wonder what the rest of you are doing here. If you want, just chuck in the chat box. If you're not a builder, developer, or energy advisor, just chuck it in so we know in the chat box. About half of you have worked with an energy advisor. Most of you have done a blower door test. Some of you haven't, about a third of you. And most are doing custom single family homes, and then there's a mix of multifamily and spec. Okay, that's good. That gives us a little bit of information about who you are. So I'm just going to close the poll now and move on to the next slide. Thank you for doing that. So before we dive into the step code, just a little bit about building performance. It really is a bit of a choose your own adventure. There are a whole bunch of ways to assess residential building performance. The first would be whether or not the building is energy efficient, and there are some key criteria there. The next would be whether or not the building qualifies as a high performance building, and there's some other criteria. Most of these are supported by energy efficiency. And then the third is whether or not the building meets sustainability criteria. There are a whole bunch of certifications out there and means of assessing the performance of a building. And the ratings and the certifications are really stretched across the full span of these. And the BC Energy Step Code, which we're going to talk about today, is really almost exclusively focused on energy efficiency. So just a little bit about the Step Code. This is a graduated system for residential construction that lays over the health and safety requirements of the building code. It's about energy efficiency, and the criteria will become more stringent over time. Today, we're only going to talk about the part of the step code that's focused on residential under 3 stories. So step 1 of the code is really just the current BC building code with a blower door test being administered by a certified energy advisor, or EA. It's a no-fail step, and it's really intended to familiarize builders with the step code, with working with an energy advisor, and how to conduct a blower door test. Then as we go up the 5 steps of the code, the standards become increasingly stringent. By 2022 in British Columbia, all homes in BC will have to meet step 3. And by 2032, all homes in BC, new homes, will have to meet step 5, which is net zero ready or passive house. The really good news is that just by applying technologies that we've learned in trade school, we're already achieving step 4 with a very little or no building cost premium over a minimum code built house, which we call the worst legally inhabitable home. So why does this matter to you in Alberta? The first reason is climate change. You're all aware that human-caused greenhouse gas emissions are driving contemporary climate change. Of all of the sources of greenhouse gases in Canada, generation of electricity and heat are about almost half, and buildings account for 22% of that. There's a very clear opportunity to reduce emissions through retrofits and to prevent higher future emissions through energy efficient new construction. So that greenhouse gas reduction is the reason that building codes are changing. Alberta hasn't made any moves to implement a BC style building code, but the National Energy Code for buildings is changing to be more like the BC Energy Step Code. It will be tiered, becoming progressively more efficient, leading to 2030 and net zero energy targets for residential construction. How that gets adopted and implemented will be up to each province, but it's very clear that as a nation, the Canadian building industry is going through a technology and standards upgrade that every builder needs to be keenly aware of. So, which leads to the next reason that the BC Step Code matters in Alberta, and that is that your clients are changing. I don't have similar data for Canada, but a 2019 study by the US National Association of Home Builders found that 91% of home buyers considered a whole house Energy Star rating as either essential or desirable, and 4 out of the top 10 must-have criteria are energy related. So if your customers haven't already asked you about energy efficiency, comfort, sustainability, they certainly will, and regardless of regulatory changes in Alberta. Right next door, BC's Step Code is very likely already an influencer of change in the Bow Valley. So last, lots of things are changing, but physics isn't. You have all seen these very nasty situations in your own community. Inadequate insulation and thermal bridging are robbing your clients of comfort and money. And these problems can be easily avoided if they're understood and planned for from the first thought about how a new home is built. And last but not least, the Energy Step Code provides a model for any builder to try some things, learn a little, maybe fail, and then try again on every home. And an energy advisor is an essential partner to guide you through the process. And I'll also put up some critical resources from BC Housing at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul now, who's going to talk to you about the BC Energy Step Code metrics.
Thank you, Meredith. So there are 3 metrics that the Step Code follows, and I'll go into some detail about each of them in a moment. The first metric assesses airtightness, and specific targets have been set for steps 2 to 5, and there are no metrics for step 1. Like Meredith said, it's just a training mechanism. The second metric assesses the performance of equipment and systems, and it is referred to as the mechanical energy use intensity, and we call that the MUI. And the third metric assesses the performance of the building enclosure. It is referred to as thermal energy demand intensity, and we call that the TEDI. So according to the poll, most of you have been part of a blower door test, which is great, and some of you have not. So we'll just quickly go through the air tightness metric. At step 1 of the code, there's no metric to achieve. They just want you to gain experience with working with an energy advisor and having a blower door test conducted. So there is no fail. It's just a way of learning. From steps 2 to 5, each step has a more stringent metric. At step 2, you have to achieve a maximum of 3 air changes per hour, and then it gets more stringent as you head towards step 5, and the maximum for step 5 is 1 air change per hour or less. By way of reference, a passive house must be under 0.6 air changes per hour. At ThinkBright, we always do 2 blower door tests on a new home. The first test is at lockup, but after mechanical. And we do this after mechanical because just from experience, we know we can seal our walls up well, and we know we can seal up our windows well. So after mechanical, this gives us a chance to find and solve any problems that may have been created by our subtrades. So for instance, if an electrician drills a hole in one stud space, but decides to move to the other stud space to put their wire through, but doesn't tell us they drilled the other hole, the blower door test will identify that for us, and we can tape it up and seal it, and it's no big deal. The second test is at occupancy, just to verify what we have done. Usually this blower door test gets better because we've put in the rest of the insulation, we've added drywall, all these things add to an increased air tightness. And the blower door day is always an exciting day for our crew because this is how they can see the quality of their work in one single metric. So usually a highlight for the project. Our standard target at ThinkBright is below 1 air change per hour. So we typically hit between 0.6 and 1. The second metric is mechanical energy use intensity, the MUI. This is the metric for mechanical and systems energy use over a year. It is estimated by using an energy model and expressed in kilowatt hours per meter squared per year, and lower is better. The MUI includes space heating and space cooling, fans, water heating equipment, pumps, and HVAC equipment. It excludes electrical loads such as miscellaneous receptacles and lighting. This metric is quite complex, and it is possible to spend a ton of money unnecessarily in this area. It's essential that you work with an energy advisor to determine the most cost-effective way to reduce the MUI of any given home. So there are lots of fancy machinery out there, and you don't want to overload your home. The idea is to hit just the right amount of firepower to keep that home running just right. So by way of reference, there is no metric for step 1, while at step 5, it is possible to achieve a net zero energy rating if you're hitting your MUI just right. The third metric is the thermal energy demand intensity, the TEDI metric. TEDI is a measure of the annual heating demand and includes energy gains and losses through the building enclosure, internal heat gains, and heat recovery efficiencies. A lower TEDI means the annual heating required by the building for space conditioning and for conditioning of ventilation air is lowered. Like the MUI, TEDI is estimated by using an energy model, also expressed in kilowatt hours per meter squared per year, and again, lower is better. TEDI considers thermal transmittance of the building enclosure, for example, wall assemblies, roof assemblies, windows, doors, skylights, those sorts of things. Solar heat gains through building enclosure components are also included, air leakage through the air barrier system, internal heat gains from occupants and equipment, and heat recovery from exhaust ventilation. Better and more insulation and better windows and doors are the major factors for success in this metric.
Thanks, Paul. So I'm just going to talk briefly about 4 critical administrative processes for energy efficiency success, and this doesn't matter which province you're in. The first is to be working with a certified energy advisor every single time you build a house. These are the people who are going to get you through cost effectively with the least amount of headache. The next is to plan for energy efficiency from the start. And I mean, like from the first moment that you're laying out development, or the first moment that you're meeting with a client on a custom home. The form matters, the mechanical specs for a home matter. And if you are planning from the start, it is absolutely possible to do this cost effectively. It's very expensive to solve energy efficiency problems further down the road. Next, you really need to collaborate with your trades. They all come armed with these nasty little utility knives, and they can really mess up a well planned out house, as can your own crews. But if you're collaborating with your trades, you've got them on board, you're supporting their training about what you're trying to achieve, you'll find that they jump right on board with you. We have pretty keen sub-trades who are also very good at spreading word of mouth about what we do. And last, you really need to cultivate your employees. We purpose hire. We post for positions on environmental and trades job sites from schools that we know are at the front end. We also invest pretty significantly in training for our employees. Their care factor is very high, which is a huge part of what's making us successful. So now we're going to turn to the step code and a case study of a home that we built in Invermere. In 2018, BC's Energy Step Code Council produced 6 case studies of examples of cost-effective homes from around BC that met step 3 or higher. One of our homes in Invermere was selected as the model for success in cold weather climate zones. And you can see the website is up there if you want to look at the other case studies. They're pretty great. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul now.
Thank you. So there are 6 proven strategies to meet the metrics for Energy Step Code. And so the first is to boost your insulation, ventilate smartly. So each home needs an HRV, mind your machines, that's sizing your heating and cooling equipment correctly, minimizing thermal bridging, so this is done at the planning stages and during construction, sealing it up, also done during construction, and you really need to think about your doors and windows. So this is the home that we built in Invermere, and it's in the Westside Park neighborhood. It's a single-family starter home, but this home achieved a quite a high rating. It achieved step 4 and worked out really well for us. So people always ask, you know, how much more does this actually cost? In this case, it cost us about 2% more, and that was based on our own budgeting. So as you move through designing and building your home, you need to think about the strategies for meeting the metrics. So with windows and doors, at this particular home, we chose a triple pane low E argon filled window. We used an all-weather product. We've since moved on from using all-weather. It worked out fine for this project, but there are definitely there's better product out there in the same price point. So typically we're using a European tilt and turn window now, also made in Canada, but out on the West Coast. You need to boost your insulation. So for this home, we built a 2x4 double stud wall with a thermal break in between. So the interior wall was insulated with an R12. The space between is insulated to R12, and then the outer wall is insulated to R12. So for a total of 36. And then as you are building, you need to seal it up. So in this home, our interior wall sheathing, which is a structural wall, we use that sheathing to seal the walls. So it was a 7/16 OSB that we used, and then we used a tape to seal all the joints shut on the sheathing and any penetrations. And then you want to continue that sealing down through your foundation level. We use ICF, so ICF seal up really well. We just connected the floor system to the walls and the floor system to the ICF, and down under the slab, you'll want to connect that to your vapor barrier below the slab, and up to the roof. The walls are also taped and sealed to the ceiling service layer, which we also used OSB to create an air vapor barrier along the ceiling. So now that we've sealed up the home really well, we need to ventilate. And every home that we build gets an HRV. We don't go really crazy with this. You definitely can. Our local contractor supplies us with a Life Breath HRV, and we're getting good results from it. You can definitely spend a lot more money on this. The top end manufacturer here that you can get is a Zender unit, and they work remarkably well. We did use it in one home recently and are very happy with the results. And then you need to mind your machines. You've just built a super energy efficient home. We don't need to put a lot of firepower into it. You know, people are always asking us about geothermal heat and, you know, what kind of furnace goes in and all that sort of stuff. We typically heat our homes with a single or maybe two head mini split ductless heat pump. And the unit that we use is good down to -24, and it's proven itself to work very effectively. Unfortunately, in our zone, we need to meet the code down to -30. These machines are only rated to -24, although they do keep producing heat beyond the -24 and beyond -30. We do need to add baseboard heaters in each room, and we typically use a very small baseboard heater, the 500 watts for each bedroom, living area, kitchen, that sort of thing. So then as you're planning your building and as you're building it, you want to minimize the thermal bridges. So we, like I said before, we do a double stud wall. So that double stud wall creates a great thermal bridge through the wall system. In the ceiling, we do a ceiling service layer, so that helps us to stop the thermal bridging in the ceiling. And in the attic, we load it up with insulation. We typically insulate anywhere from 24 to 30 inches. Our mentality is more is better up there. Once you're up there, you may as well blow a few more bags in. It's fairly inexpensive to do that. And then we typically will use an ICF wall structure for the foundation, and that offers great thermal breaks. And there's a lot of different ICF product out there, and you know, you can get ICFs anywhere from that meet code all the way up to about an R42 wall. And then below the slab, we, at minimum, put an R24 layer of expanded polystyrene under the slab.
So thank you, Paul. This home that Paul just walked you through was built on spec by us as a rental home. So cost was extraordinarily important. Just looking at something a little bit different. This is a home that we finished in 2015. It had a lot more bells and whistles than the Westside Park home we just walked you through, but it still met a tight budget for a small family. It was about $229 a square foot back in 2015 to completion. At that time, we weren't assessing for step code in British Columbia, but this home got an Energy Star rating of 88. Another home that we completed near Panorama Resort in 2019 achieved a high performance. It achieved step 4, and it was very much at mid-market prices. But what the homeowners love most, and it's not just this home, it's all of these homes, is year-round thermal comfort, natural light, fresh air, and very, very quiet, despite in this home being located on a busy resort access road. Further, in this home, although it achieved step 4 at completion, they have since reduced their energy consumption through the way they operate the home. And now they've installed solar panels, and they will likely be able to achieve net zero by the end of this year. So that's pretty much it. I hope we've been able to really demonstrate credibly that it's possible using some really common building strategies and technologies to achieve very high performance and energy efficiency in residential construction without breaking the bank. For those of you who are very technically minded, some of you will have seen this before, but I highly recommend that you go to the website listed here and under the resources find the BC Energy Step Code Builder Guide. It has a ton of detail, a huge number of sections and technical details for how you seal at every different kind of joint that you can imagine, mechanical systems, information about all of the metrics. So I'd say that if you're looking at high performance housing, energy efficient homes, this is an essential resource. So thank you very much. That is it for us. Now, if you want to reach us, you can, with questions after the webinar today, you can get us through our website. And I'm going to turn it over to Jody now.
Perfect. Thank you, Meredith and Paul. We've got some questions coming in. Please, if any of the attendees would like to ask Meredith and Paul some questions about their projects or indeed the BC Step Code, please do feel free to type them into the Q&A box. But we're going to start with a question from Spencer. He says, now that net zero energy is becoming more and more of a reality, are you starting to consider how to move into a carbon neutrality while staying cost effective?
So yes, we are thinking about carbon neutrality. This is different province to province because we are in what is ostensibly considered clean energy in BC because we're mostly on hydro. It's less of a challenge for us. In our community, in our region specifically, we are 100% hydro-powered. We don't have natural gas. And so we are building homes that are potentially carbon neutral if they get to net zero. You know, there are questions about the materials and embodied carbon in the construction of the building, but it is something we're thinking about because we're all electric, all hydro. It's maybe a little easier for us to think about it here than it might be in Alberta. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and just hitting on the cost-effective part, absolutely. For us, we've consistently been hitting step 4, and we're always developing strategies to try and hit the step 5 without really breaking the bank. And so that's a learning process for us, and hopefully in the next year or so, we've got it all figured out.
Maybe the other thing I'll say is that people always say, you know, oh, it must be really expensive. You're on electricity and our BC hydro rates are going up all the time. But our homeowners are spending, you know, between $50 and $100 a month on their energy bills. So cost effective at construction and cost effective in operation. So Jody, can I go on to Ron's question?
Yes, please do.
Paul, I'll let you answer this one.
So Ron is asking, for the panorama house that recently installed solar panels to get to net zero, did you consider or prepare for solar installation at the outset of building the house? The short answer is yes. You absolutely need to prepare for this with every home. So you need to prepare it in a way that the solar panels can be installed structurally on the roof, because if they use a racking system, the structure needs to be beefed up. So we get our truss manufacturer to add extra load to the roof to accommodate that. And then our electricians always run at least a conduit from the mechanical room up to the roof.
I think, you know, considering that in 10 years from now, every single home is going to need to be net zero ready. It's just something that we do standard. Every single home that we build is prepared for electric vehicle charging. It's prepared for solar panels, and we are considering future risk of overheating as a result of higher mean annual temperatures. So thinking about how the home will be cooled is important. Like we said, if you're planning for these things from the beginning, they're really a very minor change. We sometimes get clients coming to us and they'll say, oh, well, I found a plan on the internet, can you build this house for us? And usually the answer is, well, sort of, but we need to know where you're going to build it first, because solar aspect is absolutely essential as well. So which way the pitch of the roof is going, and how the glazing in the home is oriented to or shaded from the sun.
Okay, great. I actually have a question as the host. That's probably a little inappropriate, but I was wondering about the percentage cost comparison when you're building a, let's call it a regular code home versus a BC step code home. Is there sort of a percentage that you can explain? Is the additional cost, or is it zero?
It's not zero. A little bit, this goes back to planning from the beginning of the home. If you tried to take, you know, a set of house plans that are designed to meet code, and just turn that plan into a step 4 house, it's probably going to be really expensive. So because things like cantilevers and other kinds of overhangs, you know, the way the roof is designed, where the mechanical system is in the home, all of these things affect the cost. So we try to focus at the outset on more than just standard design considerations, so that we can shift cost away from some things that are expensive, like a lot of corners in a house, to things that are actually not expensive, like insulation. And then the other thing that happens is, as for example, you increase the insulation of a home, then you can downsize your mechanical system, because you are going to retain more heat or cool. So you don't need that huge furnace. I think on the, as we said during the presentation, on the West Side Park home, we think that we had about a 2% building premium on that home to achieve step 4 over what it would have cost us to build the home to code. And so I think one of the questions that builders and developers have is, how do I sell that 2% to my clients? And the answer is that we don't really sell it to our clients. We talk about comfort, we talk about operating cost. Often clients are on a mortgage, and so the amortized cost differential of 2% is very, very low. So it's becoming an easier and easier sell, and really the cost differential doesn't need to be an issue. We are consistently building at mid-market prices, and so far we haven't starved to death.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting paid.
And we are competitive in the market. We know the other companies that we're typically competing against, and we know their building styles. So yeah, at the outset, we need to be competitive in our market, and we have been. Like Meredith said, we're not starving out here.
Okay, great. Well, we'll just give it a few more moments. Oh, Spencer has another question. Have you considered looking into the LBC for strategies or ideas on how to push the envelope for yourselves?
So LBC, the Living Building Challenge, I think some of you probably attended a presentation where they talked about the Living Building Challenge. It is this is the high bar for sure. It hits, if you think back to the slide I had about energy efficiency, high performance, and sustainability, it really is the gold standard. We have not specifically looked into certifying for the Living Building Challenge, but the kind of things that we're thinking about right now in every home that we build. And this comes really in part from my work as an environmental consultant. I also work as a sustainability consultant. So these things are front of mind: sourcing of materials, embodied energy of materials, how things like forest stewardship certification for lumber, alternatives to the granite countertop that don't require strip mining, water conservation. These are not things that we're certifying for, but they are things that we're working internally and with our clients on all the time. And like, just the straight energy step code items, if they're planned for from the beginning, they really can be, for the most part, readily integrated. I think that the Living Building Challenge is very aspirational, something we should all be working towards. And we say at ThinkBright that we'd rather get 80% of people into homes that are 80% better than 1% of people into homes that are 100% better. And, our objective is to get as many people across as much of the financial spectrum as possible into high performance homes. So right now, for example, we are doing deep energy retrofits for the Akiskanook First Nation. And we will be achieving step 3 and 4 on some pretty crappy homes that were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and very cost effectively. So Living Building Challenge we'll work towards it.
Okay, thank you, Meredith and Paul. If anyone has any additional questions, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box. Just as
sorry,
go ahead.
Jody, just one thing I want to say. We are really on the fence about certifications. We get, as we said during our presentation, we have every home certified by or audited by an energy advisor. But so we know where we are on the step code, and we know where we are in the Energy Star for new homes. But the certification is not the most important thing. It's understanding how your buildings are performing and what their impact is, and working with an energy advisor is absolutely the best way to start to learn that. So I wouldn't get too hung up on certifications unless you're trying to get a competitive edge over your competitors.
Okay, great advice. Thank you, Meredith. So as always, for those of you who joined us multiple times, we do have a request that you help us with some research after the end of the webinar. A survey will pop up from Dr. Jill Butterfield, a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Alberta, and she's helping us to analyze the effectiveness of these webinars. It's very difficult to measure learning, and this survey and analysis will help us support our capacity to secure funding and continue this work into the future. So as you exit the webinar, I encourage everyone to participate in the survey, and if you fill out your email at the end, you can be in with a chance to win a portable Anchor solar charger. So thank you very much to everyone who's taken part so far. And finally, next week, Boda's very own Frank Koenig, developer of Spring Creek Mountain Village here in Canmore, will be here to discuss geothermal opportunities in the Bow Valley and beyond. So don't forget to tune in next week. And remember that we have our online trade showcase, which you can see online at any time. Thank you everyone for attending. We look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week. Thank you very much. Meredith and Paul, great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.